rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. Lech Walesa was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in toppling the communist government of Poland in 1989, which then led to the tearing down of the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall. Files have been recently discovered that indicate Walesa was really acting in concert with the communist government and with the Soviet Union all along. The evidence indicates that the fall of the Polish government and the end of the Cold War was in reality a planned event. We'll disclose the whole amazing story on today's edition of End of the Age. This is one of those stories that you may have a hard time believing. The thing triggering this broadcast today is that one of Walesa's associates, back when he was the president of Poland, passed away. His widow was in possession of a large file on Lech Walesa. Apparently, she has hit on hard times and needed money. She contacted the Polish government within the last short while and asked them for $23,000 in exchange for this file containing about 500 pages on the career of Lech Walesa. In this file, it states that Walesa was a paid spy for the communist government way back in the 1970s. Well, all of this is coming out in the news in Poland today, and suddenly it appears that Walesa was all the time acting in concert with the government. Now, if you're an avid follower of Endtime Ministries, this should not surprise you, because we revealed way back long ago when the Berlin Wall came down that the Pope and Walesa were acting in concert with the communists at the time. We placed this in our Understanding the End Time series, which was produced many years ago now, but the news is just breaking right now. Now, that shows you the advantage of knowing Bible prophecy, because you can see things way down the pike, even before the politicians of the world see them. Now, I want to retell the story today so we can sort of bring you up to speed. And then before we're finished, I'm going to read to you from the late breaking stories straight out of Poland about what is happening right now and the exposure of Lech Walesa as being a partner with the communists all along. It's fascinating. Okay, what happened? After World War II, the Soviet Union held Eastern Europe in its grip. Communism was spreading rapidly, and by 1962, 50% of the world lived under communism. It seemed inevitable that communism would soon dominate the entire world. Europe was separated by the Iron Curtain and by the hated Berlin Wall. Let's fast forward ahead to 1978. In 1978, the world was in the height of the Cold War. I was driving through the city of Chicago in the fall of '78, and I heard an interview by a man by the name of Malachi Martin. Malachi Martin was a Jesuit priest. He was an intimate friend with Pope John the 23rd and taught in Vatican College for 6 years. As I listened to this interview on WBBM radio in Chicago, here was the story that unfolded. Malachi Martin wrote a book called The Final Conclave, and he was explaining why he wrote the book. Well, he had my attention immediately because a conclave, and I happen to have a copy of the book here with me today, a conclave is the election of a pope. Well, final conclave, of course, would imply the final election of a pope or the election of the last pope. So I listened carefully to the interview. Mr. Martin said that inside the Roman Catholic Church, there was a huge struggle going on. Pope Paul VI, who was pope at the time, was terminally ill. Everybody knew it. So there were two factions inside the Roman Church. One of them believed that communism was inevitably going to rule the world. So they wanted to elect a pro-Marxist pope that could make an alliance with communism. The other faction, though, said, no, if we help communism rule the world, as soon as they get total power in their hands, they'll turn on the church and destroy the church. Now, the other faction wanted to elect a pope that would get the church out of politics and return the church to its true spiritual mission. Now, one thing that surprised me about all this was that the prophecy of the Bible, which I knew very well at the time, states that there would be an alliance between communism and the Roman Catholic Church, and that at the end of that alliance, communism would turn on the church and destroy the church. And when I heard Malachi Martin, a Roman Catholic priest, say this with absolutely no understanding of the prophecy of the Bible, and yet just commenting on current events, I was interested, to say the least. So what happened then? Well, a few months later, Pope Paul VI died. Now then, all of the prelates gather at Rome to elect a new pope. Well, I'm glued to my radio because I want to find out, will the person who Malachi Martin favored, that pope that would get the church back to its true spiritual mission, would he win the papacy, or would the communist win? A few days later, the white smoke came billowing out of the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, and it was announced the election of a man who took the name Pope John Paul I. Well, while I'm attempting to determine whether the pro-communist pope won or whether the pope that would get the church back to its true spiritual mission won, we suddenly were greeted with the announcement, just 33 days after the election of Pope John Paul I, that he had died during the night. Well, having followed this so closely, I had all kinds of alarm bells going off in my mind, because this man was 65 years of age, in wonderful health, and all of a sudden dead overnight. Well, I was trying to figure out, has someone assassinated the Pope? Well, it wasn't long until two books appeared. One was called In God's Name by David Yallop. Another one was called Pontiff. And then my friend Paul Marcinkus wrote another book in which he stated, I think the name of his book was Vatican, in which he stated that the Pope was assassinated. So I have three different books from Roman Catholics stating that the Pope was assassinated. Some of the evidence they gave was that Pope John Paul I had done some very unpopular things inside the Roman Catholic Church. Paul Marcinkus was head of the Vatican Bank, and he had been accused of widespread financial corruption, so much so that the Italian government had issued an order for his arrest. He had avoided arrest by staying inside the walls of the Vatican, and since the Vatican is a sovereign state, the government of Italy could not come in and get him. Well, the day that the Pope died that night, he issued the order to remove Paul Marcinkus from being the head of the Vatican Bank. Now, another situation had developed within Roman Catholicism. Cardinal Cody, the powerful Archbishop of Chicago, a story had appeared about a year before that he had funneled $1.3 million to a woman in Florida. Well, he claimed that she was his third cousin or something like that. But it became obvious to the whole world that she was his mistress. Well, Pope John Paul I ordered the discipline of the powerful Archbishop of Chicago, Cardinal Cody, that day. Guess what? Neither order was ever carried out. Instead, the Pope died that night. So the plot thickened. Now, everything I'm telling you, you can document. I'm not telling you some kind of a tabloid story here. These things really happen. Well, the Pope is dead, so we have to elect a new Pope. All the prelates are back to Rome again. And this time they elected a man who took the name Pope John Paul II. His family name was Wojtyla, Karol Wojtyla. He was from Poland. Now, here's the first pope ever from a communist country. I'm thinking about what Malachi Martin said. We've got to have a pope that can build bridges with communism. I want to pause to tell you one other thing right here that I want you to remember. Way back in 1962, because Pope John the 23rd thought that communism was inevitably going to rule the world, he had appointed a man by the name of Agostino Casaroli to build bridges to the communist world. Now remember, that was in 61. We now find ourselves in 1978. Now we have a pope, the first pope ever from a communist country, and his number one claim to fame was that he had presided over the Catholic Church in Poland for 45 years under a communist government, and the church had not only survived, but thrived. Now don't forget Agostino Casaroli, that Pope John 23rd had appointed to build bridges with communism. 1979, the year after Pope John Paul II was chosen, he appointed Agostino Casaroli, this same person, to be the Secretary of State of the Vatican now. So now he's in charge of all the Vatican foreign affairs. Well, that was 79. In 1980, it was announced that a labor union was formed inside of Poland called Solidarity. And a longshoreman by the name of Lech Walesa was the leader of the labor union. Now, for just a short time, Walesa was placed under house arrest, and the communist government, you have to realize the atmosphere back in those days. I mean, in 56, the communists had come in and had absolutely run over any revolt against communism. And also in 68, the Czech Republic, the same story. So whenever they start making moves to establish an unapproved labor union, everybody held their breath. Will the Soviet tanks roll again, or what will happen? Well, they didn't. As a matter of fact, while all this was developing, a little note appeared in one of the news articles saying that Lech Walesa's priest, a man by the name of Henry Jankowski, was never far from the Solidarity leaders' side. Well, in the meantime, things are changing inside the Soviet Union. The Soviet economy was so bad, it was stalling because socialism doesn't work. And by now, it's becoming obvious. So what are they going to do? They turned to new leadership, a man by the name of Mikhail Gorbachev. He became the president of the Soviet Union. So this progressed through from 85 to 86. And 87, Mikhail Gorbachev published a book called Perestroika, New Thinking for Our People and the Peoples of the World. And that book swept the world. Everybody was fascinated by it because Gorbachev is now saying we are for freedom. It's time for us to change the way we think. Well, in 1989, Solidarity was allowed to participate in the election of Poland. Lech Walesa won the election overwhelmingly. Well, when that happened, everything is now shifting, because when the other satellite countries of the Soviet Union saw that Poland was allowed to flip off their Stalinist government and to replace it with one of their own choosing, it was like a domino effect in Europe, one after another. They began to elect non-communist leaders. In the meantime, the people of Eastern Germany are so anxious to be reunited with their Western Germany brethren that they now start going through the Czech Republic and making their way into West Germany, and the hemorrhage was getting bigger and bigger every day. Finally, on November the 9th of 1989, the gates were opened at Checkpoint Charlie, and all the people of East Germany were given their freedom to go into West Germany. The West German government met each person with $600 for them to spend while they were visiting West Germany. It was like a Pentecostal revival, Time magazine said, and people brought their sledgehammers and began to bang away at the hated Berlin Wall, tearing the wall down. And all the time this was happening, Mikhail Gorbachev was clapping. Now remember, that was November 9, 1989, the day the Berlin Wall fell. So was this just a spontaneous combustion? And if so, why is Mikhail Gorbachev clapping? Why have they decided to allow this to happen? Well, it was only 20 days after the fall of the Berlin Wall that Pope John Paul II, Mikhail Gorbachev, and U.S. President George H. Bush met together at Malta. And when they came together, this was the first time for the Pope to meet the leader of the communist world, Mikhail Gorbachev. You'll never believe who gave the introductions. There he stood, the man that had been working on building bridges since 1961. And here we are, 1989, 28 years later. He magnanimously introduces Pope John Paul II to Mikhail Gorbachev, Mr. Agostina Casaroli. So was this a planned event, or was it not? It obviously was a planned event. I would like to take you now to some of the stories that are breaking right now concerning Lech Walesa. This particular story is headlined Accusation. The files suggest that Lech Walesa, 72, he's 72 years of age right now, Poland's first post-communist president, served as a paid spy under the codename Bolek for the same regime he later fought and brought down. Now, I can't give you all the article, but let me go down to one of the main points. The article said Walesa was a regime puppet. Remember, the Pope came to power. Henry Jankowski, Walesa's priest, was never far from his side. So this article says he was a regime puppet, and the new secret police files can prove that the project to free Poland was orchestrated by the regime. Now you got the communist regime having orchestrated everything, so everything is now making sense. The article goes on to say, we must try to find out whether decisions made at the time were independent and in line with national interest, or whether they were concocted by foreign and domestic secret services. It can show us that we were wrong in thinking we made the revolution and that our decisions were independent. This cast a shadow over the creation of an independent Poland and its political elites. All right, let's see if we can absorb all this and see what it truly means. Let me pause to tell you that in our video series, Understanding the End Time, we actually told this whole story many years previous to right now, 16 years or so ago. And we proved by excerpts from different articles at the time that the Pope was working behind the scenes. Remember, he was from a communist country. And while his election was being held to become Pope, he passed the time by reading the World Marxist Review. Furthermore, in his first speech at the United Nations, he brashly and boldly endorsed wealth redistribution, which is the central plank in the platform of international communism. And he pushed for a thing called social justice, which is nothing else than socialism. The same thing the present Pope is pushing, and the same thing that every Pope in the last 50 years has been in favor of. Now, I know I'm speaking boldly today, but I challenge you to go to the facts. Our 14 DVD series, Understanding the End Time, if you haven't seen it, perhaps this lesson today will cause you to get your own copy, because we go deeper into this than I'm doing on this program today. The 14 lesson series is called Understanding the End Time. Not only do we tell all about this, which is now coming to light, but we tell you what's going to happen 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, as I speak to you right now. In 1 week from today, Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel will be visiting our new president, Donald Trump. We already know where that's leading. How do we know? The Bible tells us. Already we know there's a peace deal coming. And we even know many of the important conditions of that peace deal. That's the reason I believe every person on earth should go through every single lesson of the Understanding the End Time series, because the prophecies of the Bible let us know what's going to happen before it ever happens. Jesus said concerning prophecy, I tell you these things before they come to pass, so that when they do come to pass, you might believe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everyone listen to me. The thousands of you that are out there, if you have never yet experienced our Understanding the End Time 14 lesson series, you need to do it now. Because if you don't do it, it's going to become history. I mean, we put in prophecy that Pope John Paul II, we put in our course that Mikhail Gorbachev and Pope John Paul II were working together to end the Cold War, to bring the Berlin Wall down. And now then, here we are, 2017, 17 years later, the news media is just now making it known through this discovered file that's been hidden ever since 1989, that Lech Walesa was complicit with this whole plan between him and the Pope, Henry Jankowski, Agostino Casaroli, and Mikhail Gorbachev. They all worked together to bring down the Berlin Wall, to end the Cold War. Why would they do that? Because Mikhail Gorbachev understood they had won the Cold War. Oh, I hear people right now saying, oh, no, the West won the Cold War. Well, if we won the Cold War, why, within 9 years, did 13 of the 15 Western European powers vote in of their own free will a socialist government? It's because while we were winning the arms race, Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union was winning the ideological war. They had infiltrated college presidents. That's the reason we see so much socialism come pouring out of our college campuses, even here in the United States of America. It's because there has been a determined and concerted effort to re-educate the populace of the world to accept the theories of Karl Marx and to vote in a one-world socialist government. I dare you, go to the membership rolls of the United Nations and see how many nations there are socialist and how many of them are for free enterprise. You're going to see that it is laughable. Almost all the world is under the grip of socialism right now. That's the reason that Mikhail Gorbachev allowed the Berlin Wall to come down. That's the reason that the Iron Curtain was torn down, because Gorbachev knew he won. He said in his book, Perestroika, many people are painting the end of the Cold War as the victory of capitalism. He said, I can assure you that is the furthest thing from the truth. Now, I underlined that in my copy of Perestroika. One more time, let me say to you, if you have not yet owned the Understand the End Time series, I would urge you to call right now and order your own copy. I don't care what you have to do to get that done. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. Now, while you're at it, you might also want to be a subscriber to Endtime magazine, because we bring these kinds of articles to our magazine on a current basis. Now, remember, we launched an effort within the last 2 or 3 days to put a subscription in the hand of every U.S. senator, every U.S. representative, and also all the cabinet members and many other influencers. Let me give you a report on how we're doing. As of right now, all of Alaska is taken care of. All of Indiana is taken care of. Thank you, Indiana. All of Louisiana is taken care of. All of Texas is taken care of. And we have many, about half of our cabinet members are now taken care of. So if you would like to pay the subscription price of one or more of these, maybe you want to just call in and take care of your whole state. I mean, I'm looking at Alabama. Nobody's taken care of. Hey, Alabama, where are you? There's only 10 members there. $290 will pay the whole thing for the next 2 years. How about somebody calling from Alabama? Arizona, we only have one. There's a total of 12. We need 11 more. So we need 1, 2, or 3, or 5 people to call in and help us with that. You can do that right now. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. I'm telling you, we'll change America back to where it should be, one mind at a time. And Endtime magazine can do it. Understand the End Time can do it. Give us a call, 800-END-TIME.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like, how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
Most people have dreamed of someday walking on the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago.
Take a trip of a lifetime with Irvin and Judy Baxter to the Holy Lands. We will take you through a biblical journey that will bring you to a new level of your love for Christ and what happened over 2,000 years ago.
You don't want to wait any longer. Make this the year of your life-changing experience. Please join us to experience the greatest place on earth, the Promised Land, with an added bonus, Rome, Italy.
Take your life-changing journey to Israel and Rome, April 30th through May 13th, 2017. You won't want to miss this transforming trip. Reserve your place today. Call 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463, or visit us at endtime.com.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
We are taking your calls in this segment of the program. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. To reach our operators, that number is 1-800-END-TIME. A couple of things that I missed as I was narrating the story of how the marriage between Catholicism and communism brought down the Berlin Wall and brought down the Iron Curtain. And that is literally what happened. And oh, by the way, that is specifically prophesied in your Bible. We unveil all of that in our Understand the End Time series. We take you through the prophecy verse by verse so that you can understand it. But there's a couple of things I want to make sure that you get. On page 560 of Malachi Martin's book, Vatican, Martin claimed that the new Pope, Pope John Paul II, told his close associates, I plan to make Poland a model. We will show them, the Soviets, how to make socialism work. Socialism was not working for the Soviet Russia because people were paid whether they worked or not. There was no motive to work, so the economy of the Soviet bloc was going downhill. But Wojtyla, which is Pope John Paul II, had a plan to show the Soviets how to make it work. The Pope said, and I'm quoting from Malachi Martin's book now, Vatican, I plan to deal with the Soviets not by announcing how we will bury them, but by showing them how to solve the problem that they themselves know will bury them. I plan to give them a model where religion, morality, and social cultural life are totally detached and independent from political control. So you can see that this was all planned in advance. One of the quote I want to make sure that you get to hear, after the Berlin Wall came down on December the 11th, which of course was about, 12 days after the wall fell, Time magazine printed this statement. When the vicar of the former evil empire met the vicar of Christ at the Vatican last week, what he said concerning religion would have been ideological heresy to Lenin and all the other Soviet leaders who followed him. Mikhail Gorbachev told Pope John Paul II, we have changed our attitude on some matters such as religion. Now we not only proceed from the assumption that no one should interfere in matters of the individual's conscience, but we also say that the moral values that religion generated and embodied for centuries can help in the work of renewal in our country too. So what Malachi Martin said in his book Vatican, that the Pope had a plan in 1979 to show the Soviet Union how to make socialism work. Now, Mikhail Gorbachev, here we are, 1989, 10 years later, after Agostino Casaroli had been working his magic for the last 28 years, has now convinced Mikhail Gorbachev that the Pope and Catholicism has answers to make socialism work. Wow. One last paragraph. The Pope said he would teach the communists that very thing. It appears as if he has been successful. The Pope went on to say it appears that Gorbachev, whether for pragmatic or other reasons, has become a believer in religion's capacity for motivating the Soviet people to pull their country out of the economic doldrums. This is also what the Pope said he would do on page 560 of Malachi Martin's book, Vatican, way back in 1979. Now, 10 years later, an alliance has been completed between Catholicism and communism in their effort to build a new world order. So maybe that explains some of what is going on. Maybe that explains why President Obama and Pope Francis gets along so well, as Pope Francis is calling for social justice, socialism, and Obama was calling for social justice, socialism. Now it all makes a lot of sense. And now we may understand, while everybody's losing their mind because we've got this new president, Donald Trump, who is not a socialist. He's a businessman. He's for free enterprise. They thought they had their world government all put together. All they needed was Hillary Clinton in the White House to complete the next 8 years, and we would be in the new world order for sure. All of a sudden, everything's going backwards. Now, there's still going to be a one world government. Europe's going. Europe's already very far gone. The only thing is, America is not going. As a matter of fact, if you would like to know what's going to happen in the future to America, we have a DVD out called America's God-Given Destiny. Now, we made a decision just today, and I don't even know whether our operators know this or not, so be patient with them if you call. But this particular DVD was not available for purchase up until right now, or for your gift. But now then, for a gift of $20 or more, we will send to you America's God-given destiny. And I'm telling you, every person in the United States of America needs to see this DVD, because we not only prove where the United States is in the Bible, but we show what the Bible prophesies for the future of the United States of America. Well, it's one of those days when history meets prophecy, and I've only scratched the surface as far as the stories that are circulating concerning Lech Walesa. You can look it up yourself if you do a search on the internet, and you can read all the stories about what is really breaking now. But it appears undeniable now. They've got 500 pages of records that he, in fact, was acting in concert with the government, even though the world press, you know that dishonest press, they all sang the party song that this was the end of socialism and the birth of capitalism, democracy worldwide. What happened to that? I mean, what was it 10 years later that Rupert Murdoch said, if socialism is dead like they say, why won't it lay down? And now we found socialism ushered in to our government through Obamacare, which in one fell swoop took control of 20% of the American economy. Now we're trying to untangle that rat's nest to get out of that, because that was the taking over already. There was much socialism in our country. Now we got to try to get back out of what's going on, and it's not going to be easy. Well, we're getting to the phones now, and I want to go first of all to California. Carl is calling from California. Hello, Carl.
Hi, Mr. Baxter.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate your show. The vials in the Bible, have you associated any current events to the vials?
No, I haven't. I'll tell you why. The vials haven't happened yet. The Bible's crystal clear. If you will look in Revelation 16, all the vials are recorded in chapter 16, verse 1 through 21. And the first vial will be poured out upon those people who have taken the mark of the beast. So none of the vials have been enacted yet, and they will not be until the mark of the beast is first enacted in our world.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks.
Okay.
Could I have one quick question?
Sure.
On your third trumpet, you said that that's Chernobyl.
Yes.
And so in that one chapter, you've got a trumpet, you've got a star falling from the sky, and then you've got waters being poisoned. Now, the waters being poisoned, I guess we're interpreting that as being literal. So what about the trumpet and the star falling? Is that literal?
Well, I don't know whether there was literally a trumpet that sounded. God couched those prophecies as the 7 trumpets. Now, you might find it interesting that I was reading the Time magazine several years after the Chernobyl nuclear accident, and Medvedev, who at the time was president of Russia, he went there on the anniversary of Chernobyl to honor the fallen people there that fought the fire. And when they had the picture of him on Time magazine, I could not believe my eyes. Over his shoulder was a tall statue of an angel blowing a trumpet. And I looked at that and said, wait a minute. They're not even supposed to believe in the Bible in the Soviet Union. They're supposed to be atheists. But here someone has erected an angel blowing a trumpet on the site of Chernobyl. And I, after that, was able to get a wonderful picture of that whole statue standing there. It was amazing. Now, to reply a little further to your question, the Bible says that many men died because of the waters. What happened was, after the explosion, there was a nuclear cloud that was carried into the air a mile, and the wind caught it and drove it toward Europe. And then it rained incessantly for the next 4 or 5 days. It filled the waters of Europe with the nuclide cesium-137. And anyone that drank that water ingested that nuclide, which goes to your bone marrow and stays there. It has a half-life of 30 years. And there are scientists and doctors throughout Europe that believe that at least 2 million people are infected and they are destined to contract cancer and already the cancer rates are very, very high. Anyway, they actually killed 100,000 reindeer that had eaten hay that had touched the water had touched. They killed thousands and thousands of rabbits that were being raised for food. They did all that because the water is the reason that it was so deadly. So I do believe the waters were literal, and I also believe when it talks about, I'm trying to recall now exactly the phraseology there, but it talks about the nuclide, it talks about Chernobyl, it talks about the nuclear explosion, and that's what a nuclear explosion, a star falling from the sky, the same thing that causes a nuclear explosion is what causes the sun to give its light, and that's what causes the stars to give their light. I think putting all those clues together, I personally believe that that is the true understanding of the third trumpet.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome, Carl. And you know, when we deal with these things, I just get astounded sometimes. Let's go now to Nathan calling from Missouri. How about it, Nathan?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. What's on your mind?
So I've been having some discussions with my dad and all that. We believe in born again and all that. So my question is where in the Bible does it say your name is put in the Lamb's Book of Life, and if your name can be removed from the Lamb's Book of Life?
In the very last chapter in the book of Revelation, it tells us that if any person adds to the content of the book of Revelation, that the plagues of the book will be added to their life. And if any person takes away from the words of the book of Revelation, that their name will be taken out of the Lamb's Book of Life. So it's obvious that your name can be taken out of the Lamb's Book of Life. And how do you get your name in the Lamb's Book of Life? By partaking of the salvation of the Lamb. When you're baptized in the name of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, that's when your name goes into the Lamb's Book of Life.
Also, I do have a quick question. I was watching, I actually have your 14 DVD series at home, and about once a week, one day of the week, we'll watch it. And so in the one we were watching last night, I can't remember, it says that all men, that the Antichrist will deceive all men. And I was trying to tell my wife and my dad that it's those whose names are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So this last question, so if you can kind of clarify that a little bit more, that they will be deceived except for those whose name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And I appreciate it, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Nathan. And that scripture is located in Revelation 13. And the Bible says in verse 7 and 8, all will worship the Antichrist, save those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So all whose names are not in the Lamb's Book of Life, they will be deceived and follow the Antichrist. That's a good reason to get your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. We'll be right back in our last segment. Stay with us.
Have you ever thought, I want to make a difference in the political world by sharing what I've learned about Bible prophecy from Endtime Ministries? But where do I begin? How can I make an impact? You can make a difference today. Endtime Ministries is ready to share the truth with all of our lawmakers on how current news relates to Bible prophecy and how it's all happening right now in our lifetime. We are asking each of our readers, listeners, and partners to donate $29 or more to sponsor a 2-year magazine subscription per lawmaker or leader in this country. With your help, we can spread the end-time message all across America. Partner with us today by donating just $29 or more, and that will go towards this world-changing cause. Our country will be glad you did. Call today at 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com and donate to our Lawmakers magazine subscription. You can be a part of America's change today.
Just to update you, the states that are completed are Alaska, Indiana, Louisiana, Texas. All other states still need your support. So, whatever state you're from, why don't you call and pay for a subscription for your governor or for one of your senators or one of your representatives? Why don't, if everybody would do that, this chart would be filled up almost overnight. So if you possibly can, maybe you could do 5 Or maybe you could do 10. 10 would be $290. 5 would be $145, but 1 is $29. If all you can do is $29, that's great. Do it. Because if everybody does $29, it won't be long till this is taken care of. So call us right now. Our operators are there to take your call and let them know which governor, which senator, which representative you want to be responsible for receiving Endtime magazine. Now, the next magazine, the first one they will receive, is called First Step to Armageddon, December 23rd, 2016. Just happened 6 weeks ago, and they will receive the story written all about it. Our lawmakers are going to understand what really happened, because I took great pains to write it out there in the article, and I think if they'll all read that article, we'll never repeat that mistake, and we'll find a way to reverse it. So make sure you do that if you can. The number to call is 1-800-ENDTIME to help out with all of our governors, all of our lawmakers, all of the federal, at the federal level. I wish we could do the state level as well, but let's do the federal level first. Anyway, the number to call, 800-ENDTIME. Back to the phones. David from Illinois is calling. Hello, David.
Hello?
You're on the air, David.
Hi, Irvin. I've been doing a lot of studying about the state of Israel, and what I want to know is that I know you do a lot of history in regards to the end time biblical prophecies, and what I want to know is are you familiar with any teachings about that the Jews that are in the land of Israel today are not the real Israelites, and that the British and the United States of America, back when Woodrow Wilson, and it further went on down into the 1948 area, that they created these people and put them in the land of Israel. And now a lot of history is coming out in regards of that these Jews that are in the land of Israel are not the real Jews, and that they're actually Khazars. And how does that... well, what I'm wanting to know is how come you haven't taught on any of this or researched any of this, because I know that you teach that in 1948 the land of Israel was created and it's considered a Bible prophecy. And if America and the Brits created these Jews to go into that land, and they're actually Khazars or Ashkenazi Jews, then how would that even fit into Bible prophecy? Well, and the other thing I want to add in there is that the teaching that's going on around, and it's becoming real popular, is that during the Atlantic slave trade, that when the Muslims and the African kings got together, they actually took the Hebrew Israelites and put them on the Atlantic slave trade and sent them across the four corners of the earth, and a lot of them came here to the United States. And a lot of this I'm learning through Ronald Sanders, Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. I'm also learning from Shalomo Sand, The Invention of the Jewish People. I'm also learning from author Kessler, The 13th Tribe, and also a book by John Henry Clark, Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism.
I'll tell you what, David, let's hold it right there, because I don't want you advertising here on our program. But
I'm sorry.
But I don't believe a word of what those people are saying. I have done a lot of investigation. That's to believe. And by the way, you can read a lot of things out there. There's all kinds of books written, but it's important that you not only read that type of literature, but other literature which would present the other side. You know, if we are to believe that all those people are not Jews, then are we to believe that the 6 million that were put to death in Hitler's Holocaust, that those were not Jews? And furthermore, since Ezekiel 37 specifically promises that I will bring you from the north, the south, the east, and the west, where I have gathered you, and I will bring you back into your own land. And he did that. And by the way, a Jew by the name of Theodor Herzl devoted his entire life from the time of 1860 until 1904 to lobbying the governments of the world to finally carve out a Jewish homeland after they had been sifted through the nations. They were driven out of the promised land by the Emperor Hadrian in 135 AD, and they've been sifted through the nations during that time. And so I believe, I don't know what the motive is for these people that are spinning these theories. I personally don't believe those theories.
Well, one more question I have, if I can, is that they've been doing DNA study on these Ashkenazi Jews, and that it's showing that there's no such thing of them having any type of DNA work.
Well, I'm not a DNA specialist, and I haven't read those books, so I don't know exactly what to say about that. But the evidence is incredible. I mean, these people who are living in Israel today, if you look at their names, Yitzhak Rabin. Yitzhak is the Hebrew pronunciation of Isaac. They have Yehuda is also the pronunciation of the name Judah. So most of these people living there have Jewish names. Now, is all this a big con scheme? Is all this a fabrication? I personally don't believe that. Hey, listen, David, got to let you go.
Well,
I've got a lot of people waiting in line, so let you go at this time. Thank you very much for your call. Let's now go to on Facebook, not on the phone, but with this question. Do you think Revelation 12 is going to happen this year? The answer is no. Revelation 12, of course, begins with a woman with 12 stars around her head, representing Israel, giving birth to a child, Jesus Christ. That happened 2,000 years ago. Then from verse number 4 to verse 5, it skips 2,000 years, and there's a war that takes place in heaven. That happens halfway through the final 7 years. So consequently, the 7 years hasn't begun yet. So Revelation 12 cannot happen yet. However, the stage is being set for Revelation 12 in that the 12th chapter of Revelation says that the eagle, the United States, is going to defend Israel during the end time. We are right now in the process of defending Israel. We stabbed Israel in the back when Barack Obama allowed the resolution to pass through the United Nations declaring that Israel is illegally in East Jerusalem and illegally in Judea, Samaria. We stabbed Israel in the back. But now then it looks like the Trump administration is going to turn that around and be one of the best friends that Israel ever had. At least that's certainly what we're praying for and hoping for. So no, Revelation 12 is not going to happen this year. Everything from verse 7 through the end of Revelation 12 will happen during the final 3.5 years immediately preceding the Battle of Armageddon. So thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate that. Let's now go to Joan, also on Facebook, but not on the phone. Why do you think Pope Benedict resigned from his seat? I do not know for sure, except that his very close personal aide, his butler, thinking that the church was going dramatically in the wrong direction, felt like he had an obligation to expose this. So he stole many of the Pope's papers, made copies of them, and then gave them to a journalist in Italy who then wrote books using these papers. And when all this came boiling out, that's when Pope Benedict resigned. I do not know what is in all those books. I don't know whether they're available in English or not, but apparently the Pope felt like he was so disgraced that he could no longer effectively be the Pope, and consequently he resigned. Now that's the best information I have, and I'm not saying that that's the only reason that he resigned. I do believe that those things did play into his resignation. However, then let's go to David calling from right here in Texas. Hello, David.
Yeah, Irvin, we all applauded George Bush last weekend at the Super Bowl being wheeled out on the stage,
Yes.
Stadium. But he's the very one that started America under the New World Order for the last days to pull America down. At the meeting in Rome with himself, George Bush, and Gorbachev and John Paul II, they all came together. They made the meeting there, and they all signed it that America was going to be pulled down into the New World Order, one world government. and our borders went down at the same time. If you notice, for the last 4 presidents, they'd come on and say, we're going to build stronger borders. But none of the last 4 ever did until Trump got in there. Trump is God's man, chosen by God to be president for his fulfillment of his purposes for America in this world.
Well, David, we better be very humble and very prayerful, because the headwinds that Donald Trump are facing are
They're
fierce.
enormous. That's fine. God's on his side for now.
All I'm saying is this: you're right. President George Herbert Walker Bush was an internationalist. He believed in one world government. And I have on tape.
This downfall we've been on. He started this.
I have on DVD. Of course, Mikhail Gorbachev was pushing for a one world government even before George Herbert Walker Bush. But
George Bush signed off with him on it, though. Don't you see? And it happened in Rome with John Paul II. And he was all for it always.
Well, let me remind you there, David, just as far as the history goes, it was 20 days after the fall of the Berlin Wall that Gorbachev, Bush, and John Paul II met at Malta. And when they came together at Malta, that's when Bush came out of that meeting announcing the birth of the New World Order. I have it on video of him saying it. So you're absolutely right. He was the biggest promoter, one of the biggest, if not the biggest promoter. And he even, when he went against Saddam Hussein, said, this is not America against the Iraqi people. This is Saddam Hussein against the world. He put together a world government force with a UN resolution, and he was fighting that war in the name of the one world government. So you're absolutely right, David. I'm not arguing with you whatsoever. I got to let you go, though, because I'm totally out of time. Thank you very much for your phone call today. And let me remind you once again, 2 things. If you've not yet been through our Understanding the End Time series, don't wait. Do it today. Pick up the phone, call 1-800-END-TIME, 14 DVDs. It will change your worldview. It will allow you to see the world and world events through the eyes of Bible prophecy, and you'll see them like you never have before. Also, please contribute to our drive to send an End Time magazine to every senator, every congressman, every government member on the federal level. Please help us. You can give us a call right now. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. And I'll repeat one more time. Alabama, haven't heard from you yet. We got a lot of great listeners in Alabama, and I just guess you're waiting for someone else. Well, don't wait, because we haven't heard from you yet. Call up, and maybe you can give a gift of $29 for one, or maybe you want to do all 10 at $290. Also, many others, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, all of these are needing people that will respond right now. So the number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Oh, by the way, if you're not a subscriber yourself, do your own first. 800-END-TIME is the number to call. God bless you all. See you tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.